Hello, so in this third video I'm going to talk about the third model of disability. So the first one locates disability in the body, yeah? And that's why medical intervention is possible, because it's located in one single individual. In the second one, you have the social model, where disability is understood as a social phenomena. And the third one, that I'm going to talk about it now, where disability is seen actually as a relation between that trait and the wider society, how it relates to those bodies. So it begins by, so in the book, the author begins by talking about Ron Amundsen, and according to him, the concept of normality and abnormality in biology is not is a biological error. So when we try to put the whole range of biological variation into boxes, we are incurring in error. So he says it is never as objective as it seems, but is rather a political act. So it says that when we do this in history, it's always based it's always framed in a specific historical context, and it's not as objective as it seems. So this made me remember one day I was reading about this reminded me, I think that's the best English expression, so this reminded me that when I was reading about this concept of species in biology, that is not whether it's a biological entity or not, because there are many different definitions for species. Let's say for microorganisms you have one, for fungi you have one, for mammals you have another one, for plants, and then it's very useful tool. Humans need this. It's very central in biology. For taxonomy is central in biology, but still there's discussion where this is a biological reality or just a tool we use to understand biology, to organize our thought. So it's a discussion. I just read it, not really deep, but it's interesting to see how biology, these concepts in science, they also can be seen through a philosophical point of view, and that's even good for science. They can develop further, they can see the contradictions. I don't know. It's good. It's interesting. I think that's a very interesting area actually. So according to Ron Amundsen, you can never put you shouldn't put all this whole range of biological variation into boxes. It's always it has a charge of that specific historical moment. And then this reminded me, for example, of how the fat body was treated in the Middle Ages and how it is now. How black bodies was treated in the Americas. It is in the Americas. It is until today, and how it is in Africa, or the deaf body also in Bali Island and in other societies. So whenever we speak slower than what is expected, so there is a reaction, there is a relation towards our speech, towards ourselves, and that's the point of reflection. According to this theory, we should go on, and in the book, the author says that historically, stuttering there was always an interest in stuttering, to understand it, to know it better. But only in the late 19th century, according to Saint-Pierre and Pierre, that stuttering started to be pathologized, seen as a disease, something that should be cured or removed. And this coincides with the emergence of the industrial societies. And yes, and if I'm not wrong, also when many new pathologies started to be created. And yeah, so yes, as we said before, so in the rural world, stuttering had being a person who started in a rural world is very different as being a people who started in a society where the relation with time is very different, where where free time, like there was a transformation in how humans related to themselves, and I think that's very clear. Also, who is interested can search about this video. Unfortunately, you cannot discuss this further; it's gonna be too long. But basically, so in the medical model, the change should occur at the level of the body. In the social model, the change should occur at the level of society. But here, the change should be more in terms of how this society, how this relation takes place, how it happens. So is it like everybody, for example, should have the right, if someone feels like, to go for speech pathologist treatment, if it feels like, and if in the social model it's a bit ignored, it wasn't so clear, this right or this need. In this model, try to recognize that yes, for some people this may be a need. Some people just want to blend in the ableist expectancies of the society. Some people may, for example, some people who stutter, they may have physical pain with a more intense stuttering, and they maybe want to look for some techniques for this, just like. But the point is that all bodies have pain. All bodies are subject to suffering, to aging. It's not some characteristic specific of that body, and that can allow people who stutter to relate to their bodies in a different way, just like a normal body, because it's a normal thing. It's just a variation. And then let me see here in my notes. So yeah, so this operation makes it easier, for people who stutter to see that their body also deserves respect. They also deserve to be loved in the way it is. And I think this is really revolutionary, especially if you go to the group of people who stutter. But as I had the chance to be with people with deaf people, this is totally possible. Also, I have a very good blind friend, and he had a very different relation with his body. So I really think people who stutter could learn from these experiences and rethink its relation with its own speech, with its own body. But also we can think about why society has to treat these bodies like this. Why we cannot be taken seriously if we take longer to speak. So what kind of values is there? Also, maybe there are different ways of communication, and also using sign language. I could learn this more, learning new languages. I think this fascinates me. There are different ways of encoding information, and we don't need to go also for these areas. We can also think about nonverbal communication and the way, touching. There are different forms of communication. We're not like fashion. I have a friend that's very into fashion, and I think that's very interesting because I was never aware this actually says something about you. So there all this universe we can open ourselves open, and also the author puts there to love the unpredictability of the voice. And I think that in a world where we want to have, there's this idea that one has to have the control of the body. You have a cold, take this and go to work, right? So take like the pill and then you can feel good and go to work. You will always have to be happy, you always have to be good. So in this society, a characteristic that is unpredictable, like stuttering. I may stutter one day, I may not stutter the next day, and it's I think this is, in my experience, something that is the hardest because it's unpredictable. So this unpredictability, this is challenging, but we can also learn to like it, especially in a society where we want to know everything beforehand, where there is this, let's say, this obsession about previewing, about controlling, about knowing beforehand. And then what about if a part of you is not predictable? And that's also something I learned from the psychoanalytical treatment, not psychological, psychoanalytical. Uh, yeah, like this Lacanian concept of the subject. And then you see that you are much less the lord of yourself as we tend to think. Yeah. But then now we'll go also ready to off-road. Um, I would recommend anybody who is interested in looking about this kind of well, the subject of the unconscious, as understood by Lacan. And I think this really made me, yeah, no, it's uncomfortable. Nobody likes to, especially in the area of speech, to have something unpredictable. But I think we can learn, and we have a unique opportunity, in my understanding, to be in the world, uh, to to make ourselves present, since we have this trait. And I know it's not easy, but this is what we have. It's not something also is subject to much change, right? And I think we can learn how to appreciate it more, if not in its entirety, but at least more. So that's the message I get from this chapter. Um, so it says that it demands then in the end a rethink of the human relations, the relationships, and I think that's very actual. It's very updated to what we need today, and I think this first chapter was very interesting. I cut it in parts so it could be more digestible. And thank you for if you watched it. Thank you very much for your attention, and we see then each other in the next chapter, the second chapter. Yes, bye bye.